War teaches you how to fight. Love teaches you how to stay. But no one teaches you what to do when love becomes a battlefield. My name's Nathan Cole. I'm 40 years old, and I used to believe I'd already lived through the hardest part of life. 3 tours in Iraq, 2 IED blasts, one bullet that should have ended it all. But none of that prepared me for what I'd face in my own home. I met Vanessa back in 2008 between deployments. She was working in a small vet clinic in Nebraska, quiet, sweet, the kind of woman who wore her pain like a second skin but never let it show. She had this way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person alive. We got married fast, military style. I went back overseas just 6 months after the wedding, and she wrote me every week. Actual letters, not emails. I still have them in a box under my bed. When I came home for good in 2014, I wasn't the same man she married. The nightmares were bad. Crowds made me twitch. I couldn't handle fireworks on the 4th of July. But Vanessa never complained. She learned to wake me gently when I thrashed in my sleep. She'd hold my hand during parades. She built the calm I didn't know I needed. We moved to a small town outside of Colorado Springs. Bought a fixer-upper with a big porch. I got a job in private security, 12-hour night shifts guarding hydro facilities. She opened a dog grooming business and ran it like a machine. We had a son, Tyler, in 2011. Life became routine, simple, steady. I thought we made it. But you know what they never tell you? Peace is fragile. It doesn't break all at once. It crumbles, grain by grain, until one day you're knee-deep in dust and don't even know where the ground went. There were small cracks. I didn't see them then. Vanessa started staying up later than me, claimed she was catching up on Netflix or working on invoices. I'd come home from night shift and see the blue light of the TV flickering in the living room, but she'd pretend to be asleep. She stopped texting me during shifts. At first, she'd send me pictures of Tyler's schoolwork or funny memes. Then, silence. I chalked it up to stress. The business was expanding, she said. She had more clients, less energy. I believed her, because I wanted to. One night I came home early after a shift got cut short. The house was dark. I didn't want to wake them, so I quietly crept in. As I passed the living room, I saw 2 wine glasses on the coffee table. Only one was rinsed out. Her laptop was open, paused on a screen I didn't recognize. It wasn't Netflix. It looked like a Zoom window. No name, just a black box and a faint reflection. I assumed it was business, maybe a client consult. It didn't sit right, but I was exhausted. I climbed into bed beside her. She stirred, mumbled something about being so tired, and turned away. It was the first night I couldn't fall asleep next to her. The next morning, my younger brother Evan dropped by. He was always dropping by. We grew up tight, and he moved out here after his divorce. I helped him get back on his feet, found him work, helped him rent a place 10 minutes away. Vanessa always got along with him, too well in hindsight. She laughed at his jokes more than mine, said he reminded her of who I used to be. Before the war hardened you? It stung, but I never said anything. I didn't want to sound paranoid. Looking back, I wonder if that was the moment it all began, when I chose silence instead of questions, when I mistook comfort for connection, when I started thinking that loving someone meant ignoring the signs they didn't love you back the same way anymore. But I wasn't ready to see the truth then. I was still clinging to peace, even if it was already long gone. Cheating never starts in the bedroom. It starts with silence, with "I'm tired," with "it's nothing," and then it grows teeth. Funny enough, it wasn't me who first noticed something was wrong. It was my son, Tyler. Kids see everything. They just don't always know what they're seeing. One evening before a night shift, he walked into the bedroom while I was putting on my uniform. He stood there a second, hesitating. "Dad," he said, "is Uncle Evan coming over again tonight?" I paused. "Why do you ask?" "He was here a few nights ago. He brought tacos. Mom said it was just dinner, but they were in the garage for a long time. She told me not to bother them." I felt something tighten in my chest. "You sure it was Evan?" "Yeah, same blue truck. I saw him from my window. He left before you got home." Tyler wasn't trying to stir anything. He was just telling me what he saw. I forced a smile and patted his shoulder. "Thanks, buddy. That's good to know." But deep down, I already felt the walls shifting. From that moment on, I started noticing things. Not big, obvious signs, just off. Vanessa started dressing nicer around the house. Little things, lip gloss, eyeliner, always right before I left for my shift. Her phone? Always with her. Face down. Notifications turned off. She used to leave it plugged in on the kitchen counter. Not anymore. One day I went to use the iMac in her office to check a bank statement. Password changed. She said it was because of client privacy. Fair enough, but it never used to be an issue. She stopped asking about my nights, stopped texting me during breaks. When I sent her a selfie once from my patrol route, she didn't even reply. Something was shifting, and the worst part? I couldn't say anything without sounding crazy because it wasn't evidence. It was just gut. Then came the night that sealed it. My shift got canceled last minute due to a power outage. I didn't text Vanessa. I figured I'd surprise her with takeout. When I pulled into the driveway, the lights were off. At first, I thought she and Tyler were asleep, but as I stepped inside, I heard the soft creak of the garage door. That garage had a distinct sound. I helped install it myself. Then whispers. Low. Two voices. A laugh. Heron, then his. I froze in the hallway just outside the laundry room that connected to the garage. I didn't barge in. I didn't yell. I just stood there, feeling like a ghost in my own home. A few minutes later, the voices stopped. The door creaked again. I heard her footsteps padding back toward the kitchen. I backed away. I pretended I wasn't even there. And for some reason, that made it worse. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I reactivated an old security camera I had installed in the garage years ago. It was a part of our early home protection system, back when I first returned from Iraq. I had disconnected it after the remodel, but the wires were still there. The power still worked, and now I needed truth. Vanessa didn't know it was back online. I connected it remotely through my phone. Told myself I was being paranoid, that I needed to know, even if it proved I was just being insecure. What I got instead was the kind of clarity that cuts skin deep. 3 nights later, while I was on break, I checked the footage. She opened the garage at 9:42 p.m. Evan walked in 5 minutes later. No hesitation, no hiding. They hugged, her arms wrapped around his neck like they'd done it 100 times. He kissed her shoulder. She giggled. He reached for her waist. She let him. My younger brother, the man I helped find work, the man I helped get through a divorce, the man who used to sleep in our guest room when he was broke, and her, my wife of 13 years, looking at him like he was the man she dreamed about, not me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared, watched it on a loop like it wasn't my life, like it was some twisted reality show and I couldn't change the channel. I remember thinking, she never looked at me like that anymore. And then, how long has this been going on? And finally, why did I ignore the signs? I turned off the feed and just sat there. Hours passed. My shift ended. I didn't drive home. I parked in a grocery lot and stared at my steering wheel until the sun came up. She had no idea. She texted me that morning like nothing happened. Hope your shift wasn't too rough. Got leftover pizza if you're hungry. Pizza, after watching her kiss my brother in the dark. My world had changed forever, but hers hadn't changed at all. Betrayal cuts deep, but when your child sees it before you do, it's not just pain, it's shame. I thought watching the footage was rock bottom. I was wrong. The worst part came from my son. A week had passed since I saw the recording of Vanessa and Evan in the garage. I hadn't confronted her yet. I was still figuring out how to approach it without losing my mind. But one afternoon, while I was fixing Tyler's bike out back, he said something that tore me apart. "Dad," he asked quietly, "why do you and Mom pretend?" I stopped tightening the bolt. "Pretend what?" "That everything's okay. You both act like nothing's wrong." But I heard them too. My hands went cold. I looked at him. His eyes didn't flinch. "What did you hear, buddy?" "I heard Mom and Uncle Evan. That night when you worked late. She told me to stay in my room, but I had to pee. I went to the kitchen and the garage door was open." He paused, looked down. "I thought Mom was hurt. She was making sounds, weird ones. So I opened the door a little." I couldn't breathe. She yelled at me, slammed the door, said I was dreaming the next day. He was 12, and he had walked in on something that should have never been part of his world. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me earlier? He shrugged. I didn't want to make things worse, but I saw the little red light blinking on that old garage camera last week. I figured you already knew. He looked up at me then, and in that second, I saw it, his quiet heartbreak. He hadn't just lost trust in her. He was waiting to see if I'd do anything about it. I hugged him, tight, and that's when I knew. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife. I was dealing with a broken family. That night, I told Vanessa we needed to talk. I asked Tyler to stay in his room. I didn't want him to hear what was coming. She sat on the couch, wine glass in hand, wearing the t-shirt I got her during a vacation in San Diego. She looked relaxed, at ease, like nothing had happened. Is something wrong? She asked. How long have you been sleeping with Evan? Her smile dropped, but there was no panic in her eyes. She sipped her wine slowly. So, you know. Answer me. 8 months. 8 months. My hands curled into fists, resting on my thighs. Why? She leaned back, exhaled through her nose. Because I felt alone. Because you came back from war a ghost. Because Evan actually listens. That wasn't a reason. That was a defense. You slept with my brother, in our house, while our son was asleep in the next room. She didn't flinch. She just looked at me, eyes dull, cold. You act like I planned this, like I wanted to hurt you. You didn't care enough not to. She stood up, walked to the kitchen counter, poured more wine. And then she said it, the sentence that will echo in my head until I die. Maybe if you hadn't come back so broken, I wouldn't have needed someone else. My world stopped. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just dropped that line like it was truth, like it was my fault she betrayed me. I didn't scream. I didn't flip furniture or throw punches. I just left. I grabbed my truck keys, walked past her, and out the door. But before I did, I handed her a flash drive. She looked at it, confused. On that drive was the footage from the garage and an audio clip I recorded of Tyler's confession. I didn't say another word, just one sentence before the door shut behind me. Now you get to watch what you did, just like I did. When someone betrays you, they think they're hurting you, but they don't realize what they've truly broken until they're left holding nothing. I didn't go home that night, didn't even tell anyone where I was. I crashed in the back of my truck behind a shuttered gas station outside of town. Cold wind rattled the windows. I didn't sleep, just stared at the roof of the cab, heart pounding like I'd been dropped back into combat. But this wasn't war. It was worse, because I'd spent years surviving for something. For her, for us, for Tyler. And now, everything felt hollow. The next morning, Evan called. I didn't answer. He left a message. Bro, please don't do anything stupid. Vanessa told me you know. I didn't mean for this to happen, okay? Let's talk. I still love you, man. Still love me. Right. Like a knife still loves the back it's buried in. I returned home the next day to get a few things. Vanessa wasn't there. Neither was Tyler. I walked through the house slowly. The smell of her perfume still hung in the hallways. But it felt foreign now, wrong. I took down a framed photo of the three of us from the fireplace. Her smile in it made me sick. I packed a duffel, grabbed my laptop, and then saw a folded note on the kitchen table. We need to talk. You owe me that. I didn't owe her a damn thing. I stayed with an old buddy from the service, Mitch, for a few nights. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and sat with me in silence. Eventually, I told him everything. He looked at me and said, "You're handling it better than most men would." Was I? Because inside, I was losing my grip. The next hit came 3 days later. I was at a diner when my phone buzzed, Tyler's school counselor. She said Tyler had been withdrawn and visibly upset. Said he asked to speak to someone about home stuff. I showed up within the hour. They let us talk alone in the office. He wouldn't look at me at first, then he asked, "Dad, are you leaving me too?" My heart broke again. I got down on one knee, grabbed his hand. Number never. I just needed space from Mom, but I'll always be here. Always. He nodded, but I could see the cracks. He'd been strong too long for someone his age. Meanwhile, news started spreading. Small towns always know. Whispers at the grocery store, glances at the gas station. One guy at the bar even said, "Man, sorry about your brother. What a snake." Turns out Evan had done this before, during his own divorce. Only no one ever pinned it down. Now people knew, and word spread fast. Then came the confrontation. I didn't plan it, it just happened. I was coming out of Tyler's school when Evan pulled up in his truck. He got out like everything was fine, like he was the victim. "Nate, come on, man, let's just talk." I turned and faced him, and I don't even remember throwing the first punch. But I did, knocked him straight to the ground. He scrambled up, yelling, "You don't understand. She came to me. You shut her out. You chose your job over her." I got in his face. "She was my wife. You were my brother. There is no justification, none." Then I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I realized how pathetic he was. He didn't look like a man who won anything. He looked like a man who burned down the only family he had left and didn't even know how to stand in the ashes. I walked away, didn't look back. A week later, I met with a lawyer. I didn't want to drag Tyler through court. I didn't want a messy war. But I also didn't want Vanessa to rewrite the story. So I asked for full custody rights, with Tyler spending time with her under conditions. When Vanessa found out, she blew up, called me, yelled, cried. "You're taking him away from me?" I told her calmly. "You made choices. Now you live with them." Tyler moved in with me full-time after that. Vanessa didn't fight it in the end. Maybe the guilt finally caught up to her. Maybe her reputation in town was already shredded. Or maybe she just didn't care enough anymore. But even as I picked up the pieces, I couldn't shake the feeling that something permanent had died. Not just love, not just trust, but the man I used to be. The man who once believed he could survive anything as long as his family was intact. When the storm clears, you don't rebuild what was destroyed. You build something new, with stronger walls and fewer doors. A year passed. At first, I lived like a ghost. Woke up early, made breakfast for Tyler, took him to school, worked part-time security at the base while looking for something that didn't remind me of war. Nights were the hardest. The silence after Tyler went to bed. The stillness of a home missing laughter. Missing trust. I didn't date, didn't go out, didn't even think about moving on. I just focused on being there for my son. Tyler was quiet that first month. He didn't talk about his mom or Evan, but I knew the wound was there, deep and invisible. One night he came into my room and asked, was I not enough to make her stay loyal? I almost broke. Held him so tight I could feel his heartbeat syncing with mine. "No, buddy, her choices were never about you. They were about who she is, not who you are." After that, something shifted between us. We healed together. I found a therapist, a vet specialized one. Started talking about the war, yes, but also about Vanessa, the betrayal, the gaslighting, the shame. I learned something important. You don't get to skip grief. You walk through it, or it waits for you forever. I started writing, short journal entries, then blog posts. Turns out a lot of men had stories like mine. Men who served, who sacrificed, who came home to an enemy in their own kitchen. And suddenly, I wasn't just healing, I was helping others heal too. Then came Vanessa's letter, exactly 1 year later. Handwritten, no return address. I sat at the kitchen table for 20 minutes before opening it. "I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. I just wanted you to know that I regret everything, not just the cheating, but watching you carry all that pain alone and doing nothing. Evan's gone. He left 2 months after you punched him. He said I ruined his life. Maybe I did. I lost the only man who ever loved me through hell. You deserve better. And Tyler deserves the father he's got, not the mother he got stuck with." I stared at that letter until the ink blurred from my tears. But not because I missed her, not because I forgave her, but because she finally saw the wreckage she caused. Tyler's doing great now. He just turned 13, plays guitar, writes lyrics. His teachers say he's one of the most mature kids they've ever met. He still sees Vanessa once a month, supervised. He doesn't ask for more. He never mentions Evan. And I don't either. As for me, I started coaching at a local gym, training younger vets on how to get back in shape, physically and mentally. I still have scars, still have nightmares sometimes, but I'm no longer broken because I finally learned being a good man doesn't protect you from betrayal, but it helps you survive it and rebuild better,